What's up, you guys? Tony here. In this video, I'll be looking at Ergo Josh talk about some of the worst mistakes that young artists make. Let's see what he says. Let's check it out.
I knew I wasn't good at just drawing something from nothing. I wasn't as good as other people that I saw. So very early on, I just stuck to images. I stuck to referencing things. But later on, once I started getting into digital art, I would, again, still use reference, even after my phase of like cheating and pretending that I didn't trace things when I would just straight up trace photographs.
I don't know what it is about artists, but when we have those things that we're not as good at, if we don't hone into them and really get better at them, it's really easy to just be like, I just suck at hands. Like, I'm just not good. They're always terrible, you know? And we just carry that into our future as if we just never learn how to draw hands. But there's been times where I've done studies where I'm drawing a hand and it looks great, and then I'm drawing a person and then I can't draw a hand. So it's weird how that is, but it's not always true. You can draw it, but there's like a disconnect with your ability and then the difficulty of applying that. Sometimes it can be a disconnect where you're like, I suck, I can't do this, but it's not true. But yeah, anyway, okay. Getting deep.
Try something and have this dream and not get there. It's just core to who we are as human beings. It's not a very good feeling at all. Yeah. But the other reason is I think a lot of
it's like no grace to grow. You're just like, I'll never figure it out. And that's not real. I don't know why that's a thing, but okay, sorry. I keep interrupting.
People just want to do things right and they want to get that kind of satisfaction of being good enough to match their ideal for something. So recently on stream, I was talking with some of my viewers and we all shared this common feeling of, you know, like, it really is painful when you love something so much, but you don't want to do fan art of it because you want to do it justice, right? Somebody was asking me, how do you get over that fear? And I had to say, like, I honestly never did. I just trained until I felt like I could do it justice. I would do little things here and there. I'd only do a portrait. I'd only, no background for sure. Maybe I'd do a full body, but it'd be like grayscale. I would always limit myself in order to feel better.
Oh, interesting, because you're not defined by your work. And that is something that is consistent in the graphic design, web design industry. Those artists feel the same way. They feel very connected to their work and they feel it's very personal to them. Even if it's for a client, like a business, you're doing a logo for them. There's something about the ego, that's really what it is. Your ego attached to your work and it being good enough, where you don't even allow yourself to grow, which is the only way to get good enough. And there's like a resistance from failure, which that's the only way forward. You have to draw an eye horribly to draw good. There's no other way around that. You have to do those portraits and like get the bad work out of you and not even see it as bad. Love the process enough to try and give yourself the opportunity to try. It's easier said than done, and that's something that I'll be doing on this channel. It's going to be uncomfortable, but that is what it takes. There's no way around that. In anything that you want to learn, you have to practice. You have to give yourself the space to fail. That's easier said than done. That is so easy to just put out there, but implementing it and getting over those limiting beliefs like, I'm not good enough for this, I'll never accomplish this. Like, figure out where that comes from and not letting it stop you. Those are, it can be crushing, you know? It can be crushing. And you know the crazy thing is, you can even be more competent as an artist and that still not do anything to help that. So maybe celebrating those wins is something I'll try to do as I go forward. And like, yeah, that was good. Wow, this was cool. Oh, I'm not all the way there yet, but I'm glad I did this. Or, having those small wins along the way, maybe that's the key. I don't know.
That's why I think it's difficult for a lot of artists today to get ready to be professionals in the working industry because they don't know what it's like to create art without putting yourself into it so much, because you need to create something that serves a purpose and has a function rather than the actual product being the end goal, which is, that 2D piece of art that you've made. But without going on a tangent there, I want to go back to the really main thing that's scary about this, which is what you lose when you try so hard to avoid failure, to avoid that disrespecting something that you really like, you start to lose this potential to improve at a crazy good speed.
Yes. See? We're on the same wavelength. He's always getting there. He's getting there. Come on.
And this is something that I've seen with myself as I've let myself just go all out and do the thing that I think is cool, that I think is the best. I have noticed that I improve faster, and you just kind of do things better. And I find that when I just kind of mindlessly start adding in colors and values, it's a lot more accurate to what I'd like than I thought. And
that is so good. A lot of the work even behind me, I created when I was in college years ago. And I find that it's still some of the work that I like the most. But at the time that I made it, art was so new. And it's like the further I get into understanding art, the further I get into understanding what I don't know. And it's very easy to take that to a place where you diminish your value, like, oh man, I suck, or I'm not that good, or da da da. Like, you just create these barriers because you're constantly trying to be where someone else is. And you're your own artist. I mean, art is so subjective. There's artists on even YouTube that you'd be like, man, that's not as skillful or not as detailed or not as expressive or not as anime as this other person, or not as realistic. But every artist really has their own path. And it's so interesting because there's a battle between your style and a style that you kind of build a liking for that's not really yours. Maybe there's a part of you that enjoys it, but really finding your own style, I think, helps you to understand that it's your own journey, and you don't have to define your quality of art in a bubble trying to compete with people that are doing the work. And if you're not even doing the work, how could you ever compete with them? If I was looking at an artist that's more established and they're drawing all the time, or they've been drawing for years, and I'm not picking up my pencil to even begin to draw, I'm scared to like render out a face, and it's not even that hard. It's just crazy. But anyway, tangent. There's no way to be better other than trying and failing. There's no way around that. And that's so good. That's such a good tip. Okay, take it away, Josh.
I keep having the same mindset of, oh, if I do that, it's just going to be a mess, a really messy, muddy mess. It's the same mindset from when I was in college in 2016, 2017. I still think that way about this specific part of my art, even though I have a lot more experience since then. It's really crazy how you can think that way. And another much more technical part of it is that you progress slower because you just don't know how to assemble all the skills into an end product. That is a very important thing you actually have to learn to do. You can't just learn all of the fundamentals separately and then be able to create something amazing outside of that. You have to learn how to put those together in a really interesting way, and how to make creative decisions while you're doing that, and how to kind of dance between the more artistic left and right brain, then go to more technical, check yourself, then...
I'm going to stop this a little bit because it's getting a little bit too deep, but I think this is so true. And being able to analyze it in that way, the only way forward is doing. There's some things that you will not be able to comprehend in theory. Like you said, if you go to art school, if you do art school online, whoever, if you have a mentor, you do a tutorial somewhere online, however you get the information, you can't internalize experience. You can't. You have to do it. And this is such a good reminder, and myself included, the only way you're going to get that mileage in is by doing it. Like, you can't pontificate and dissect somebody's process without doing it. Like, the best way when you see an artist that you like is to take exactly what they drew. If you're trying to do rendering, for example, have that drawing done, or get the line of that drawing, the line art, and then start rendering that. Like, it's a different way for your brain to understand the process by doing it, and there's just no way around that. It's not really possible. And then taking what you like from that and putting it in your own style, that's the only way. And there's no way you're going to be good, or even give yourself a chance to be good without doing it. I keep repeating myself, so I'm not gonna keep saying that point, but you gotta do it. You gotta fail. more. Fast. Fail fast. Fail often.
Go with the flow and keep all of that in a good balance that creates something unique and yet inspiring and captivating to the average person. One thing a lot of people don't realize is important is that you have to evolve your preferences and dislikes. Otherwise, you're just going to end up being like everyone else. Everyone makes the same comparisons to something because it's the most similar thing that they can, identify with. So, for example, when you see one East Asian fighting style, you immediately say, oh, that looks like karate, right? Because it looks like the one other thing that you've heard of or you've seen in a movie. But then once you know all about it, you can tell the differences. And then when you hear somebody make a mistake, it's like, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy? It's obviously not this, right? And that's with everything that's out there. Genres, it's with music, it's with people's art. You'll see a character and be like, oh, this is like this character, right? And the more characters you know about and how they were developed, then the more breadth you have with being able to make those comparisons. And that
So true. I want to also say, this is pretty cool. Like his drawing style, using this pink as opposed to grayscale, because the grayscale can feel very cold and not realistic. So that's cool. Adding that warmth in there with the pink. That's cool.
that applies to your own creativity as well. And you only work on that by creating the things that you find the most exciting in the beginning and keeping that up. Lately, when I've been doing this, I've realized that there are certain traits about what I like that make me stand out. So lately I've been really immersed in a mixture of perspective, lighting, kind of a dark, moody feel, but also a very soft, bright feel that I've been dabbling in for quite a while now. Just beautiful stuff, dynamism, the sense of immersion overall. All of those things are very interweaved with everything that I like, even in art.
This is so interesting to hear somebody else, like another artist, talk about this, because I don't think about any of this when I'm drawing. I'm just like, I want to draw a face today. Let's go. Oh, I like this one. This is pretty. And then I just start. And yeah, it's interesting to hear somebody that is a lot more analytical about their approach. For me, I think the best thing for me is like, I listen to music and stuff and just want to just zone out and kind of not think. Art is to me like an escape in that way. So it's interesting to hear someone with a different approach.
Architecture, it influences what I like. And
architecture, there it is. That's why. Okay. Continue.
It's taken all of this time, all of these 4 years and beyond to realize that. So that's one good thing about all this. I don't see all of this as like, I said mistake in the title, but it's not really a mistake, because if it wasn't for all of this time, I wouldn't have realized that. I wouldn't have the proof to see all of these things in action, because there's nothing like proof when you weren't trying to look for something and then you see the evidence of it. So when you look back in time and you see, I was doing this in 2012.
Or like when you're young and drawing, you don't know that it's like not good enough or it should be better, or you're not making comparisons with other artists. At least I wasn't constantly looking at amazing artists all the time. I was just drawing and living and looking at books. And that was the big thing back when I started. It was looking at different books and then finding comic books and looking at what they had in there and being inspired by the X-Men and other characters that I thought were really inspiring and larger than life. So yeah, that's what it's about, finding your creative groove, I think. And that is something that you can trigger every day, I think.
That is the manifestation of the the common truth we like to throw around, that be yourself, be unique because only you can be you, right?
Yes. I really wish we embrace that. I mean, how many unique styles, perspectives. It makes me think about, are we inspired by things because we think it's safe, because it's already popular and accepted? What if we really embrace drawing our own styles, like fully our own? If we were in a bubble and we didn't see other artists, what would our art look like? If we didn't have this self-imposed criticism about our artwork, what would our art look like? That'd be really interesting to see.
And we all throw that around, but If you're like me, I'm like, well, I'm not really that interesting, so it doesn't matter if I'm just me and there's only one me. I'm not that valuable. But the thing is that is kind of what makes value, or because it's you, nobody else can do it, right? And I'm starting to see that with myself now. I know the combination of life events and traits and parts of myself that influence what I like and some of the things I mentioned before. And I know that there's an extremely unlikely chance that there's somebody else out there who has that combination of things about them too, let alone be interested in art, right? And so I'm not really worried about messing up or flopping all the time when I invest and kind of let myself immerse myself into these things. It's always been something I've been worried about. Like, how come other people can be so consistently successful and it's so spotty with me? And I've kind of realized that, oh, there are some things that I'm kind of consistently successful with, especially when I think I didn't do a good job. People are like, no, I still love this. I still see.
Yes, that is so good. I think it's just that it goes back to that internal like criticism. You know, you're creating things as obstacles for you that are not. You know, like you're already killing. So just continue to kill it. Yeah. I think for any artist, like the mistakes that you make are valuable, and they're not even mistakes. You're just, like he said, the worst mistakes that young artists make. Most of this is just self-imposed internalized thought, and it just keeps you from even making mistakes. That's the worst mistake. Not even being so afraid to make one, you don't even start. You just work yourself out of being an artist because you're not even creating anymore. You know, wow, this feels like a therapy session, and I'm just gonna continue
You in this, and I realized it was because only I could have done anything remotely close to that in the first place. And so now I'm trying to look at other places in my life and think about, okay, what else? How can I make it more like that so that I don't have to stress about missing all the time or worrying about being consistent? The goal is to make it eventually be something that I don't even have to worry about. It's like inevitable. So I want to give some advice on what or how to actually do the thing that you really love the most. And I think the thing that I've been doing lately will help a lot of you out, and that's to do whatever is the craziest idea that you can think of, but not just like, oh, crazy wild, like just do anything that you want. Don't think of any limits. Like, I don't want it to be that woo-woo sounding, but try to come up with, like, if you're trying to come up with a new idea or you want to do a fan art, think of like what your favorite artist would do or what you would do 10 years down the line. And whatever you're struggling with right now, you're like really good at it. What would you attempt? What would be the shot that you would take? And then try and do that now. And this is really good.
Ooh, sounds terrifying. Don't like that. But that's good though. Wow. Okay. I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna take you up on that.
Good for two reasons. One is if you shoot for the moon, you may not hit it, but you're still going to make something way better than you could have if you shot for anything less, right? The second reason this is really good is because you 10 years down the line would have had a way better idea.
Okay, first of all, this reference right here, I really like this. I was thinking that he was going to stay to the, okay, so we're switching gears. We're talking about the actual art now. I was thinking that he was going to make these two people look similar to the reference and use those colors. And I just assumed he was using this pink to get the flesh tones down initially. But I really like this reference also. Oh, so good. I don't know what it is about this style, but I just really like it. It just has this airbrush, soft split. I don't know how to explain it, but I really like it. Okay, let's continue.
Waiting to let yourself do that when you're better is a terrible idea. You're not allowing yourself to come up with that better idea, and so it's still probably going to be mediocre. But if you do the best thing you can think of right now, you're only going to do better than that. Trust me. That is one thing that improves with art skill as well. Your ideas get so much better, and your ability to be creative can expand. like almost exponentially at a point. So recently with my Your fan art, I was coming up with ideas, trying to think of something, and I kind of lied down. I was like, you know what, let me just think of what would be really cool. And I
You know what? This is interesting to hear because I think my ideas are so much bigger than what I can like draw, you know? I have like so many, like I said, sketches in my sketchbook that I'm like, when I get good, I'm gonna render this. But I'm not there. So yeah, I'm gonna challenge myself. Thank you, Josh, for initiating this to illustrate those and just post them and then just move on. And if I draw that character again down the line, so be it. But yeah, oh, that's so scary. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do that, but I think it'll be good. Okay, I'm excited. All right, continue.
I came up with an angle. I was just trying to like visualize what Yor would be doing in her assassination mode. And then as I was looking for references, I was like, yo, what if she was on a table? And then another idea hit me like, yo, what if she like just killed everybody at the table? And I'm like, I have no idea how. I've like the most people I've painted in one painting is probably 2, maybe 3, and this would probably end up being like probably just something like 5 or 6. And even though it's not full body for all of them, that's like hugely daunting. But I'm like, that's a sick idea, and I'm like, I have to do that. I owe it to myself to do that, because waiting for it, like I said, is going to deprive that older version of myself from having that really cool idea that I can only have when I get these ideas out of the way. And another thing is to give yourself plenty of time. I know it's a mixed bag to share how much time you spent on your art on social media these days, but I think it's pretty good when it's really long, because I've only ever seen people feel comforted by it. So the painting, I'll show it on the screen now if I'm not working on it, that helped me see this reality.
Wow.
I spent 60 hours in. And even though you can leave Procreate open and it will keep tracking time, there's a lot of time I know I spent outside of working in Procreate where I was just thinking about it or researching for, looking for references and stuff, to where I just take the time as it is. And so 60 hours doing that, a ton of that time was on stream. That is a lot of time. And I want to say to you, give yourself plenty of time, no matter what it is. Make it perfect. I tried so many different poses. I spent 26 of those hours without even shading because I just wanted to get it right.
Okay. Wow.
I knew I could do something a little bit better, so I wanted it to be right. And when I found the perfect reference, even after I figured out the legs, I wasn't even trying to look for it. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to redraw the leg because this is perfect and I have it and I want to make it look better. And I'm very, very happy that I did that. I even got to a point where, as I was working on my next fan art, I was like, I don't want to go back to the other one. How can I be more excited about it? And I thought about that, and that ended up meaning that I needed to filter it a little bit, get rid of a lot of the details, and kind of go back a few hours in time and then keep working on it. And that ended up being the trick.
Oh, wow. So undoing details. Wow. To get inspired again, to continue. Okay.
And I do want to address the people who may not have a super big passion. You might want to do a lot of different things. And you're not alone in that. There's a lot of people who are in the same spot as you. You might just be like, I don't know, nothing is really that great, or I don't have that great of an idea or passion or drive to do this. Or do something specific. I just love art. That's fine. I want to say that if there's a trend going on that you want to hop on, go all in on it. If it's like, let's say it's like something like Mermaid or Plain April, go.
Mermaid. I have so many mermaids in my sketchbook that are just forgotten and need to be finished. So also this reference is looking awesome. Okay, continue.
All in on that, and that could be your kicking off point where you start to learn about who you are and learn about what you're interested in. I don't think it's good to like shame everyone for getting in on a trend, no matter how long it might have been going on. That can be the thing that gets people excited about art and be their kicking off point. Some artists have inspired tens of thousands of other artists to copy their style. I feel like I can say that. And that's fine, because I think that's a lot of people who are going to now be able to start their journey thanks to multiple different individuals, whether or not they had that intention or not. The truth.
That's so good. Because being inspired by another artist is just the beginning of that's so true. Because your style over time, if you keep up with it, will change absolutely so much. Yeah, good point.
Truth is that you can also realize that you have been avoiding being true to yourself with your art, or doing the best idea that you could possibly think of,
Yeah.
without even realizing it. I didn't even realize I wanted to be an artist since I was a young kid. I always thought, being an artist, no, that's how you be poor, right? Starving artist, I can't do that. So I just immediately dismissed that and never even considered it until way, way later in my life. It's really crazy.
That is so good. When I always knew that I wanted to do something with art early on, but I think I definitely had a time period where I was like, well, maybe architecture, well, maybe comic book artist, maybe 3D animation. There was a lot of different pathways to get there, but maybe a concept artist. I think that was another one. So yeah, it took a while to kind of land on, oh, I can just put art online and connect with people that way. Like, that's also cool. I think I had a deviant art uh, years ago. I think I still have it, but yeah, that's kind of that's exciting to hear that someone else kind of went through the same thing and also was told like, yeah, but what are you gonna do with art? Because it feels like a risk, right? Being an artist, for sure.
But I knew I was into this stuff because I have a memory of like asking my dad of like, how do you do that? I saw.
Or being a gallery artist, like showing you. I've done that a lot, and that's definitely a path as well. But it's not as enjoyable. I don't know. It's something different. It's weird. Now, if you want to talk about feeling like you're vulnerable in front of people, show your work in a gallery. That, or be at an art fair or something like that. Those scenarios, especially if it's not specific to the style that you have, or it's not like a Comic-Con situation, or I'm sure it can even happen there, but that makes you feel like you're completely naked and vulnerable. For sure. 100%.
Like an image of a wireframe. It was just like an effect for a show or something, but I saw a wireframe of a person's face, and I don't even think it was stylized, and I just thought that was amazing. And I remember this, even though I was so sure I wanted to be in architecture for most of my life, I still held on to that memory for a pretty big portion of my life. So yeah, don't let anyone judge you for dabbling in trends, because regardless, this video is about avoiding limiting yourself in the first place, right?
There you go. I was really interested to see where this piece would end, and it looks like it ended up being more of a sketch than like a fully finished thing. But I really like the expressions that he has on here. I can see, I was looking at his channel like years ago, and I can see that progression and growth. So that's really exciting to see. Especially, I think he wasn't like focusing on being an artist. He was an architect before, so it's really cool to see. But yeah, interesting conversation. What are some of your thoughts about this? I'd be interested to see below the things that you're encountering that you're afraid of. If you're experiencing art block, or if you feel like you're not progressing artistically, that would be really cool to talk about below, because those are things that obviously are common for artists, and definitely something that I experience and I'm excited to destroy in my own work, in my own mind. So I'm going to take up that challenge and try to make something that I think I'm not good enough to make or create now.